That is the verse which is famous by the name of Misafun Nabiyyin. I mentioned earlier while discussing various aspects of this verse that it covers everything required vis-a-vis our attitude to those who claim to be prophets. If we encounter anyone who has claimed to be a prophet, then what should be our behavior and conduct towards him? I stated earlier, as I just mentioned, that this verse covers everything about it. But there is one thing which is dominant by being absent. Although this verse speaks of full cooperation to those who are Allah's prophets, who fully support the previous teachings and the previous prophets, and who have been, whose advent has been prophesied in the previous books, and they come as fulfillment of those prophecies. About them it is said categorically that you have come into covenant with me, that you would certainly support them and would not oppose them in any way. But the last part, would not oppose them, is missing. Just support. The words mentioned are that you would positively support them with your full might. Now, nothing has been mentioned as to those who are not Allah's prophets, who have not been sent by Him, who are just attributing things to Allah falsely, as they are called false prophets. So what about them? What is the attitude which the Holy Quran expects us to adopt vis-a-vis those people whom, after examining, we consider to be false? Now this verse leaves that out. Is that an omission? Or is this subject left on purpose? That is the first issue to be resolved. I believe that this is left out on purpose, because we have nothing to do with that then. The moment we come to the conclusion that a claimant to prophethood is false, then we are not expected to do anything about him. It's no longer our concern. So because it is no longer our concern, so the Holy Quran stops short at that and does not mention it any further. I mean, does not consider it worthy of mention. Only if the prophets are proved to be true, then it is our duty to support. That's enough. And that is all that is there to emphasize. If they are false, then well, it's up to them. Nothing to do with us. That is the sort of attitude which has been adopted in this verse by being completely silent about that possibility. If I am right in inferring this from this, then obviously there should be other verses of the Holy Quran to support my view. And there are so many, not one, who exactly elaborate on this subject as in the way which I am describing. Among other verses, I have chosen one to illustrate this point. It says, أَمْ يَقُولُونَ افْتَرَاهُ قُلْ إِنِ افْتَرَيْتُهُ فَلَا تَمْلِكُونَ لِي مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا تُفِيضُونَ فِيهِ كَفَى بِهِ شَهِيدًا بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكُمْ وَهُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Do they say he has forged it? Say, if I have forged it, you cannot avail me aught against Allah. He knows best what mischievous talk you indulge in. Sufficient is He for a witness between me and you, and He is the most forgiving, the merciful. Now the first part is very significant in this regard. Do they say he has forged it? That is the negative attitude which one can adopt towards the claimant of the Prophet. He believes he has forged it. So what is the response to of the Prophet who has been alleged to be a forger? The Holy Quran tells us that Allah instructed Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to adopt this attitude, that if I have forged, then the possibility of your supporting me against Allah is to be ruled out. Now that is also a very interesting way of dealing with this subject. It does not say, then if you oppose me, I will be destroyed. Opposition at the hands of those who consider somebody to be a false claimant is not a possibility mentioned here. What is mentioned there is that if I am a false man, then there is a possibility of your supporting me. Because human beings always oppose the true prophets, not the false ones. If the prophets are false, then there is a real possibility of your or some sections among you supporting me. Now this is a very interesting implication of this verse, which should be studied in further detail. The fact is that false claimants, whoever have so far been proved to be false in history, have always been supported by some faction of human beings before they made the claim. Either they made the claim being supported by their tribe, or by some other faction, or by some cliques of some sort. No prophet or no one in history has ever made a claim, being the same person, to be a prophet, while he was not a prophet, without any human support. Now, when you look back at the history of those who made false claims to prophethood during the history of Islam, this statement will be supported in every case. Right from the time of Mutanabbi or Aswadanasi down to the time of the modern days, this is a statement which will be proved right in every case, applicable to every claimant of prophethood during the past 1400 years, or 1300 years we say. Either those people were proved to be mad, or they had previously, before making the claim, a positive support of some sort from among human beings. None of them walked out alone by himself without any material support whatsoever and made a claim and then won converts and then later on gained greater power. So this is by implication the reconstruction of all that happens to false prophets. When it says, it's the most interesting way of describing things. If I am a false claimant, then your support will not be of avail to me. Your opposition is ruled out. If I am true, then of course opposition would be frustrated. That is a different subject discussed elsewhere. But it says, if I am a false person, then there is a likelihood that I am supported by someone from among you, by some factions from among you. Because false prophets are always supported by some human factions. In that case, I assure you that support will be of no avail to me. That means that the false claimants are doomed to destruction anyway. They are bound to be annihilated by God Almighty. And there is a possibility of some human support which is being discussed, and that would certainly be frustrated because no one can be of any avail against Allah to false claimant. In the light of this, when you read the other verse of the Holy Quran, again applicable to our situation, it further clarifies the whole support point. It says, لَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضُ الْأَقَاوِيلِ لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ فَمَا مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ عَنْهُ حَاجِزِينَ. That those who say that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the founder of Islam, peace be upon him, has made a forgery of the book. Why the situation is this, that if he had only made a forgery of a small saying, not to mention the whole book, which is a very big forgery, even if he had forged a very small saying and attributed to Allah, لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ. It was our task, primary responsibility of ourselves, to hold him by the right hand. And by bil-yamin, the Holy Quran means the sources of power. We would have arrested him at the sources of his power. فَمَا مِنْكُمْ مِنْهُ أَحَدٍ عَنْهُ عَاجِزِينَ. Again the same subject is repeated in the same style. Then there is a possibility of some faction on whose strength he may reclaim to try to come between him and God. But of no way. ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ. We would have cut his jugular vein. فَمَا مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ عَنْهُ عَاجِزِينَ. And none among you will be able to save him from Allah's wrath. So this is the expected treatment of human beings to false prophets. In another verse, further clarifying the whole issue, the Holy Quran tells us of a very interesting incident in the time of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. وَقَالَ رَجُلٌ مُؤْمِنٌ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ يَكْتُمُ إِيمَانَهُ أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَنْ يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهُ وَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ وَإِنْ يَكُ كَاذِبًا فَعَلَيْهِ كَذِبُهُ وَإِنْ يَكُ صَادِقًا يُصِبْكُمْ بَعْضُ الَّذِي يَعِدُكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي مَنْ هُوَ مُسْرِفٌ كَذَّابٌ. From among the people of Pharaoh, a man who was hiding his faith came running forward and addressed those who were planning to murder Moses. Addressing them, he said, أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَنْ يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهُ. Are you going to murder someone for the mere crime that he says Allah is his Rabb, his sustainer and his Lord? وَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ. And he also claims to be from Allah, a messenger from Allah, and he has brought some very clear signs from his Lord. If for this crime you have decided to murder him, then listen to me, and it is implied, this is not the right course. I mean, this is all implied. All this is wrong attitudes. I advise you, إِنْ يَكُ كَاذِبًا فَعَلَيْهِ كَذِبٌ. If he were to be a false man, if he is a liar, a forger, then what has it got to do with you? عَلَيْهِ كَذِبٌ. the punishment of his progeny will befall him, not you. If he is making false claims against Allah, he will be punished, not you. So what have you got to do with him? Nothing. Take your own way. Take your own path. You go your own way. You are not concerned in this matter. How can it be possible that I make a false claim against Allah and you are punished for listening to it? So you have nothing to do with me. It is Allah and me, and no one else is concerned. But if such a person happens to be a right man and somebody opposes him and tries to kill him or murder him, then he goes on to say, وَإِيَّكُ الصَّابِقًا يُصِبْكُمْ بَعْضُ الَّذِي يَعْدُونَ. But also consider the possibility. If he happens to be a right person, the truthful person, a right prophet from Allah, then يُصِبْكُمْ بَعْضُ الَّذِي يَعْدُونَ. Then we will have had it. We will have had it. When Allah's wrath is going to befall you as He claims it is going to befall you. So then it will become your concern only. If he happens to be not a false man, but a righteous man. If he is a true prophet of God, then of course it is your concern. You must support him or at least not oppose him the way you are going to. If you do it, then you will receive Allah's wrath. So the whole issue is so beautifully clear in all these verses that no other possible attitude towards claimants of God is even contemplable. It is out of all question for us to adopt any other attitude than the one mentioned in these verses. And it's so logical too. Now about Hazrat Masih Maud Salam, the founder of the Ahmadiyya community, the opponents are taking this attitude for a long time now. They say he was supported by the British. And this was the reason we could not destroy him. Had he not been supported by the British, then we should certainly have destroyed him. This is the attitude they are taking. The fact is, who are you to destroy? It was Allah in the first instance who should have destroyed him. There is no concern of you. So why are you playing God? In the Holy Quran, nowhere it is said, not even by implication, by a remote implication, that if you come across a false claimant, you must destroy him. It is your duty. Show me a single verse where it is mentioned by Allah that it is the duty of those who are addressed by a false claimant to destroy him. On the contrary, it says it's no concern of yours. So why are you playing God? But what a weak God to play. Such a weak God that you could not destroy a person who was supported by the British government. A shame on you. If you were to play God, at least behave like a God, play as Almighty God, not a God who is much weaker than the British government. You see how absurd, how meaningless. Now, going back to the question now, three particular phrases used by the Holy Quran or expressions used by the Holy Quran in the end part of Surah Al-Fatiha. Anamta alayhim, maghdubi alayhim, wad-dallin. There are three phrases very different from each other in style and in some other features. As I already mentioned, Anamta alayhim means on whom, O Allah, our Lord, you have shown your favors. So the subject of favors is mentioned as to be Allah, and the object of favors is not described in detail. That part is left out. Of course there are some people who are fortunate enough to be recipient of Allah's favors. So one end is clarified and the other end is left obscure. In the second, the subject is not mentioned, the object is mentioned. Maghroob are mentioned. There are certain people, of course, who are going to receive somebody's wrath. Whose wrath? That has been left out. So the other end is made obscure and this end is mentioned in detail. And the third, no punishment is mentioned, only a crime is mentioned. Maghroob are those people whose crime is not mentioned, but whose punishment is mentioned. Dhalin are those whose crime is mentioned and no reference is given to the punishment. So this is another way of looking at this end of Surah Al-Fatiha. Although it is well known and it is so much discussed in our literature that Maghroob means mainly, among other people, Yehudi, that is the Jews. And Dhalin refers to Christians. It has its reason why this is mentioned, and this attitude is adopted by Mufassirin al-Jamaat Ahmadiyya. Hazrat Muslim himself has fully supported this view. Hazrat Muslim has done the same. And also previous scholars have also referred to this, that Maghroob are mainly the Jews, Dhalin are Christians, and that covers the whole story. But it doesn't cover the whole story. That is the point I'm trying to make today. Maghroob, if you look at it, is only looking at the people from the point of view of their punishment. While no reference is made to their crime here. But when you proceed further to study the Holy Quran, then you will have a repeated reference to the same people of you, and there their crime is discussed in detail. And in Dhalin, an attitude of the people is mentioned, a criminal attitude, but no punishment is mentioned. Now, among other things, this is to be noted, that some wrongdoing could be forgiven by Allah, and He can forgive and He will forgive them. That is also one aspect, because Surah Fatiha started with Rahmaniyat. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Rububiyyat and Rahmaniyat, they are very closely related things, intermingling with each other. So after the Rububiyyat, the first, let's say even before that, the first verse of Surah Fatiha is Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, where the first attribute which is mentioned of Allah is Rahman. So Rahman means the one who is most, the last word in compassion, beyond whom the concept of compassion cannot be conceived. His compassion covers everything. He is compassionate even to those who do not beg for compassion. So it is the last word in compassion that is described by Rahman, the word Rahman. And the Surah Fatiha ends up with the mention of some criminals, while their punishment is not mentioned here, leaving the possibility of forgiveness of Allah open. So Maghroob are treated before this, and Dhalin afterwards. Among other things, this is one of the reasons. But the starting point should tally with the end point of Surah Fatiha and make it a complete whole circle. And again in the Holy Quran, when you come across the mention of Dhalin, you also come across the possibility of some being forgiven. But Maghroob are those about whom the final verdict has been issued. So their crime must be a special crime, although they are also the same people who are wronging themselves. Because when the Holy Quran mentions the story of Maghroob, those people who were recipient of wrath, There the word zal is also used. They are having gone astray, that is also being mentioned. And their crimes are referred to as zalalat in so many places. So that means they are also zombie. But there is a very special feature of their crime which carries them further in the intensity of their crime. After that, they forfeit the right of forgiveness at the hands of Allah, who is so compassionate. So that means those crimes which are mentioned with reference to they earn Allah's wrath are such extreme crimes that despite the fact that Allah remains to be all compassionate, all merciful, yet they cross those borders and leave no room for Allah's mercy, and so that Allah declares them here on this earth. Now you have been declared as Mazur, the recipients of wrath, both at the hands of Allah and at the hands of people. What are those crimes? When you study those crimes in detail, you will be surprised to find that the first and the foremost among them is opposition to prophets. Repeatedly, their crimes against prophets is mentioned to earn them this epithet of being Mazlum. Those who oppose those who claim to be Allah's prophets and leave no stone unturned in showing hostility towards them and try to kill them, murder their followers and annihilate their message, these are the people, if you read the Holy Quran, who are repeatedly mentioned as the recipients of wrath. The wrath at the hands of Allah as well as at the hands of their fellow beings. At the hands of nature as well, because the Holy Quran also mentions that sort of wrath, where directly no hand is seen. For instance, when the opponents of Muhammad were punished, you could see the hand of Allah working through the hands of the followers of the believers. But also you could see the hand of Allah working visibly when Pharaoh was drowned. But there are certain calamities which sort of have a concealed drop. Earthquakes occur. Nations are wiped out of just natural calamities, and apparently the historians cannot detect the hand of special wrath of Allah. So those people who are recipients of Allah's wrath can be divided into three categories. Those upon whom Allah's wrath befalls, and it befalls in a visible way. You can't miss it. They have received special wrath of Allah. And those whom nature seems to destroy, but because it was prophesied by the prophets of the time, so connecting the prophecies with the conduct of nature against them, one can bring two and two together to make four, and one can declare that it was the wrath of Allah. But because there are so many people who are destroyed at the hands by natural calamities, so it is slightly a bit confusing and mixed affair. And the third is at the hands of the people. That is also obvious. When people suffer at the hands of others, you can see that. So all these three types of wrath are exhibited in the history of those who are recipients of Allah's wrath. Why Jews are so pronouncedly declared to belong to that category can be proved from this third section very clearly. Jews are a people, a race or a religion, whatever you may call it, however you may treat them, who have been repeatedly punished at the hands of human beings. So so prominently, so outstandingly, that every punishment left a very deep mark on the history of mankind. And the whole world kept resounding with that punishment. This punishment has been their lot, unfortunately, for a very long time. Much before Ahmad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was revealed the Sharia of Islam. But before he was made a prophet, even before Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, came with the final message of Judaism. So this punishment is visible, and there is no confusing this issue. No historian can miss that. So all this makes the complete picture of those who are Maghdubi alayhim. What is their conduct? Why are they declared fit for this extreme punishment from all sides, directly by Allah, by the nature at Allah's command, by their fellow human beings? What earns people such a wrath? Main thing is that they oppose the prophets. And therein is a very great warning for the present day, let's say, arrogant people, or ulama of Pakistan particularly, and other ulama everywhere in the world, who have taken upon their hands to oppose the word Masih Maud, and they are following the footsteps of all those who have done that before, vis-a-vis of the prophets. So I was reading that story as mentioned in the Holy Quran to you, taking up illustration after illustration as it has been recorded by the Holy Quran. And interestingly, almost all the excuses invented by the opponents of prophets earlier, on the strength of which excuses they justified their cause for opposition, are being repeated today vis-a-vis Hazrat Masih Maud, as if all the prophets' people have become alive again, and all the forces which oppose prophethood at any time have been given a new chance to jointly oppose Hazrat Masih Maud once again and try their best. About Hazrat Hud, we read in Surah Al-Araf, وَإِلَىٰ عَادٍ أَخَاهُمْ هُودًا قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ قَالَ الْمَلَأُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ قَوْمِهِ إِنَّا لَنَرَاكَ فِي سَفَاهَةٍ وَإِنَّا لَنَظُنُّكَ مِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ لَيْسَ بِي سَفَاهَةٌ وَلَكِنِّي رَسُولٌ مِّن رَّبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ أُبَلِّغُكُمْ رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّي وَأَنَا لَكُمْ نَاصِحٌ أَمِينٌ. The reason why, according to these verses, the people of Hud opposed him and rejected him, among other reasons, one which was forwarded by them was, إِنَّا نَرَاكَ فِي سَفَاهَةٍ, we find you a stupid man, not a sane person. The same thing as it was said about Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you are Majnoon, you are stricken with some madness. So this is also one of the excuses adopted by the opponents of prophets, and in their arrogance they consider them Safi. And the same thing is carried on by their followers against the followers of prophets. They say, Anominu kama amana sufaha, should we believe in prophets like these stupid people have believed? So this is exactly the attitude adopted against Hazrat Masih Maud today by his opponents, and particularly by the present regime of Pakistan. they issued a paper against Hazrat Masih Maud, and in that this point was particularly raised, that we have found him to be, after studying him, scholars have declared that he is a stupid man. So he is a false man. So the same story is being repeated all over again, ultimately to the same result, of course. Now, about Hazrat Saleh, we read that قال الملأ الذين استكبروا من قومه للذين استضعفوا لمن آمن منهم أتعلمون أن صالحا مرسل من ربه قالوا إنا بما أرسل به مؤمنون قال الذين استكبروا إنا بالذي آمنتم به كافرون فأقروا الناقة وأطاعوا من ربهم وقالوا يا صالح ائتنا بما تعظنا إن كنت من المرسلين فأخذتهم الرجفة فأصبحوا في دارهم جاثمين فتولى عنهم وقال يا قوم لقد أبلغتكم رسالة ربي ونصحت لكم ولكن لا تحبون الناصحين. The chief men of his people, that is the people of Saleh, who were arrogant, said to those who were considered weak, those among them who believed, do you know for certain that Saleh is one sent by his Lord? They answered, surely, we believe in that with which he has been sent. Now, same was the question asked at the National Assembly when it met to examine Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Saleh. Do you believe that he is right? He is a true prophet? He said, yes, of course I do, and we do. And they said, no, we don't believe, he is a false man. That was the attitude, that is the attitude being today adopted against all other Ahmadis too. I receive continuous account of such happenings in my letters, where Ahmadis tell me that I was called and they pointedly asked me, do you really believe that Hazrat Masih Maud was a truthful person and was a righteous prophet? And when I said yes, he said, focus, nonsense. We don't believe in such things. So this is again an attitude, an ancient attitude of the opponents of prophets, which is being repeated in this time. Now they became blatant and defined to a degree that they tried to obstruct the passage of his preaching by destroying the mode of his travel, that is a naqa. Then they hamstrung the she-camel and revolted against the command of their Lord and said, O Saleh, bring us that which thou threatens us with, if thou art indeed one of the messengers. Naqa, that is the she-camel, is only a symbol, because Hazrat Saleh used this naqa to spread his message all around. So by hamstringing that naqa, that is the she-camel, they deprived him of the means of spreading his message, the mode of spreading his message. In the modern times, the modern naqa is the Ahmadi publications, the books, the magazines and all that. Through these books and magazines, Ahmadi message is being spread all around. And this is exactly what the Pakistan government did. They prescribed Masih Maud books, magazines, newspapers, in small pamphlets, by telling us that you are spreading lies and falsehood, so you have no right to publish all this nonsense. And by doing that, they are incurring the same wrath of Allah which befell early people before them. And I have been repeatedly warning them against it, telling them in so many words that it is not a joke. You are playing with fire. And ultimately the same calamity will befall you. as previously it has befallen other people before you. But nobody is paying heed, and most unfortunately they are persistent in adopting this course of utter annihilation. Then, about Hazrat Shuaib we read, قال الملأ الذين استكبروا من قومه لنخرجنك يا شعيب والذين آمنوا معك من قريتنا أو لتعودن في ملتنا قال أولو كنا كارهين. The chief men of his people, who were arrogant, said, assuredly we will drive thee out, O Shuaib, and the believers that are with thee from our town or from our land, or you shall return to our religion. He said, even though we be unwilling. Now the same story is exactly being repeated in Pakistan. This is the ultimatum published by ulama that according to them the government should issue to all Ahmadis. And the words of the ultimatum have been stolen from the Holy Quran, from these verses, without giving reference to them. They should have the honesty at least to tell people that these are the words we are unquoting from the Holy Quran. The words which are addressed to Hazrat Shuaib by his people. So at least they should be that much honest. Now, exactly the same words have been published repeatedly in Pakistani newspapers. The ulama say that the government should issue a notice to Ahmadis that either they must return to us as the main body, according to they claim the main body of Islam, or they will be turned out of our land. They call it our land. So interesting, everything is being repeated in detail. Only they don't tell people where they are picking up this, all this education in opposition to prophets. Again about Hazrat Shuaib, the Holy Quran tells us, قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره قد جاءتكم بينة من ربكم فأوفوا الكيل والميزان ولا تبخسوا الناس أشياءهم ولا تفسدوا في الأرض بعد إصلاحها ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين ولا تقعدوا بكل صراط توعدون وتصدون عن سبيل الله من آمن به وتبغونها عوجا واذكروا إذ كنتم قليلا فكثركم وانظروا كيف كان عاقبة المفسدين. It is this particular verse to which I am referring now. Hazrat Shuaib was opposed by his people in a very special way, and he is admonishing them not to oppose him to this extent, to such a degree. The manner they adopted was this, from which Hazrat Shuaib is trying to dissuade them, and sit not on every path, threatening and turning away from the path of Allah those who believe in Him and seeking to make it crooked. And remember when you were few and He multiplied you, and behold, what was the end of those who created disorder? The ulama of the present day have repeatedly boasted that they are following Ahmadiyya everywhere, and they are sitting on every path which leads to Ahmadiyya, and this they call Taqo. They say even so, when their head fled the country and went to England, we followed him up there, and we sat on every road leading to Ahmadiyya which was created there by them. And we stop people from joining, and this is the great laurels we have won. So So doesn't it remind you of the same story that occurred at the time of Shuaib, from which he tried to dissuade them? While he failed, how can we win? So unfortunate, so tragic. This is the end of these people who have taken upon them to obstruct the passage of truth. Now again, a very interesting dialogue is recorded by the Holy Quran between Hazrat Shuaib and his people. That brings Hazrat Shuaib into a very special light. He was a very fine argumentator, a very fine debater, and on the side of truth, defending truth. And his mind seems to be working in very, minute detail. It's very deep. قد افترينا على الله كذبا إن أدنا في ملتكم بعد إذ نجانا الله منها. Previously in the first place, he was told by his opponent that either we will turn you out of this land or you must return to the main body. At one place he forwarded the argument that if our hearts are not convinced, how can we return to the main body? Show us reason, how can we? There is no way. Now he is telling them that if we do so, we will be proving that we were definitely false people. قَدْ افْتَرَيْنَا عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا إِنْ أُدْنَا فِي مِلَّتِكُمْ بَعْدَ إِذْ نَجَّانَا اللَّهُ مِنْهَا وَمَا يَكُونُ لَنَا أَن نَّعُودَ فِيهَا إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّنَا وَسِعَ رَبُّنَا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا عَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلْنَا رَبَّنَا افْتَحْ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَ قَوْمِنَا بِالْحَقِّ وَأَنْتَ خَيْرُ الْفَاتِحِينَ. If we return to your religion after Allah has saved us therefrom, we will indeed admit that we had been forging a lie against Allah, and it behoves us not to return thereto, except that Allah, our Lord, should so will. Our Lord comprehends all things in His knowledge. In Allah have we put our trust, so, O our Lord, decide thou between us and between our people with truth. So, O our Lord, decide thou between us and between our people with truth, and thou art the best of those who decide. Now this statement is apparently a simple statement, but it is to be studied in depth. So many points can be observed after a closer study of this statement. First of all, why we have left, he's trying to make them understand the situation more clearly. He said, we have not left you of our own free will. We have left you because we were so told by Allah. We have differed with you in some respects, not because we thought we were right and you were wrong, because we claim that it is Allah who has told us that we are wrong there and we are right there. That is the reason why we deviated. So how can you expect us to return without proving ourselves to be false and conscious forger against Allah? Now this is exactly our position today, as was the position of the people of Hazrat Shuaib. We believe that we have believed in Imam Mahdi, who was declared to be Hakam Adl by the founder of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has led us on the authority of revelation which he received from Allah. Allah told him that these verses should be interpreted like this, that Jesus Christ is no longer alive, that he is dead, and so on and so forth. So in every respect where he differed with you, or who he made us differ with you, The reason was that he was guided by Allah. This is why he was called Al-Mahdi. So the moment we return to you, we will also be admitting that we were conscious forgers. While we are not that. Because conscious forgers never suffer at the hand of people in vain, unnecessarily. This is the implied argument we should be further elaborating, and this is a very interesting argument. This I said Hazrat Shoaib was a fine debater. In this he expected a lot of wisdom. The fact is that those who make a forgery consciously always make this such a forgery to gain certain ends, draw certain benefits. If a man claims to be the proprietor of a lost property and he is not the proprietor, there is every reason why he should claim that. Because if his claim is accepted, then he will receive some property in return for that. But if it is said that if you claim to be that person, we will beat you and we will destroy you and we will punish you as no one else has ever been punished. And on the top of that punishment, we will insult you. Will a false claimant come forward and make that claim? That's the argument inherent in this. He said the moment we said Allah is speaking to us, Allah is guiding us, we became vulnerable to your wrath and to your hostility. So this claim in nature is such that it is never treated with favors, but is always treated with extreme disfavors and punishment of all sorts. So how could we be that stupid to make a claim that Allah has guided us and receive at your hand what we are receiving, and yet we be false? And after everything, after being beaten up, after being deprived of our houses, after being burnt alive in some cases, and made orphans and widows and all that, now we repent ultimately and say, all right, we will rise. That brings to mind a story, a very interesting joke, but it applies to such a situation. If Hazrat Shoaib's people had admitted after being beaten up that they were false after all and returned to the original people, then their case would be similar to this which I am going to tell you. It is said that someone who I think I have told you this story once before, but this is an interesting story, I should repeat it here. Because there are so many stories repeated in the Holy Quran vis-a-vis these people. So a fitting story can be repeated on the authority of the Holy Quran. Somebody owed, someone, what's it called, Malia? What's the English of Malia? Revenue. Land revenue, yes. Well, to revenue, water revenue level, it is a joke about somebody who owed water revenue to the authorities, and the water revenue amounted to exactly 100 rupees. So he decided to take 99 rupees instead and save 1 rupee. In those days it was a British rule, and they were very strict in imposing this land revenue and receiving every penny out of people. So he went there and excused himself and said, look here, I am a poor man. You don't know with how much difficulty I raised this sum. But I could only raise 99 rupees. So I hope you will forgive me and leave that 1 rupee out. Ignore that 1 rupee. The officer was well trained by the then British imperialist government. So he said, all right, I will do that only on the condition that you are beaten, lashed with a shoe 100 times. If you accept that, then I will forgive you 1 rupee, otherwise not. He said, look here, I am a respectable man, of course. I am a human being. How can you treat me so insultingly to lash me, and that also will choose. This is ultimate degradation. I won't accept it. So what I propose instead is that I'll eat 100 onions instead. This is of course very difficult, to eat one onion, not the British onion. It doesn't have that sting, Onions in our country, the small ones, are very, very horrid to eat. Very obnoxious. So he said, okay, I accept that. So he started eating onions, although he was quite an expert at that, but within the matter of a few, let's say 10 onions, he lost patience and gave in ultimately. He said, look here, after all I am a human being, Onions are a very difficult thing to eat. So I accept your offer, okay. The first original suggestion. So you beat me with lashes instead of forcing me to eat onions. So when they beat him with 10 lashes with shoes, he said, look here, stop. After all, I am a human being and a respectable person. So let's start eating onions again. So one after the other, he was beaten by lashes, and then alternately he started eating onions. Until he finished 100 onions, and it was the 100th lash which was going to be, to be meted out to him. Then, by this jostling along, his turban was unfolded. And from one of the folds of the turban, 1 rupee fell. In case of extreme situation, he had saved that 1 rupee, folded in the turban. So he took that 1 rupee in his hand and said, look here, this is how Allah saves one's respect. This is the 1 rupee for which you are doing all this to me. So take your rupee and leave me. This is the argument which is being put forward behind the chair. He says, you are taking an attitude towards us. You want us to believe that we were conscious forgers. And we were telling lies against Allah. And now, after beating us, after killing us, after dragging us in streets, after hurling all abuses against us, you think that we will accept the other position of lashes. Revert to the worst position by admitting that we were conscious forces against Allah. So these were the two evils between which the people of Saad were caught. The choice to offer to them was this: either we will continue beating you and destroying you, or you destroyed yourselves by admitting that you were conscious forces against Allah. Through inquisition, through persecution sometimes, they take confessions out. And if you do not confess, you are beaten. If you confess, then you are punished. So this is the position which is being explained by Hazrat Shaib so beautifully, that you are leaving us no sensible choice at all. It's impossible for us to adopt any course. Because if we stick to our position, then we will be standing on the wrong side of yours. If we revert to the other position, then we will be on the wrong side of Allah, which will be much worse. So we better not be on the wrong side of Allah. وَمَا يَكُونُ لَنَا أَن نَعُودَ فِيهَا إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّنَا. And they then repeat this assertion that we did it only because Allah guided us. So no amount of pressurization and punishment at your hands is going to change our mind. Why not pray to Allah? Our hearts and our minds are in His hands. If He so decides, and when He so decides, we can change our stance, because we already changed the stance facing such bitter situation. So if we can do that once, For the sake of Allah, if you can accept all this which is being easy out at your hand, why shouldn't we do it? If Allah so desires us, for a better way for a better and easier and more comfortable life here on this earth. Because the moment we renegade from this new message and return to you, we will be treated with open arms and love at your hands, and it is an easier course. But the only problem, the only difficulty is that we can't do it without the permission of Allah. So we better pray to Allah, we should change our hearts, so we will return you all right. Return to you all right, if so happens. But he warned them, رَبَّنَا افْتَحْ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَ قَوْمِنَا بِالْحَقِّ وَأَنْتَ خَيْرُ الْفَاتِحِينَ, turns to God, leaving them alone, and says, "Oh our Lord, you know that we are right, and it is you who can bring about a clear judgment. Bring a clear judgment upon the people so that right is distinguished from the wrong. So we pray thee, you bring about that final judgment and the right is distinguished ultimately from the wrong." So what happened in the end? The same story is being repeated. فَكَذَّبُوهُ فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. They continued to reject Shu'aib, but they called him a liar. So a violent earthquake seized them, and in their homes they lay prostrate upon the ground. Now we come to the first Pharaoh. According to the Holy Quran, وَقَالَ الْمَلَأُ مِنْ قَوْمِ فِرْعَوْنَ أَتَذَرُ مُوسَى وَقَوْمَهُ لِيُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَيَذَرَكَ وَآلِهَتَكَ قَالَ سَنُقَتِّلُ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَنَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُمْ وَإِنَّا فَوْقَهُمْ قَاهِرُونَ. It was suggested to Pharaoh by the elders of his people that if you leave Moses alone and his followers, they would create disorder in the land, and yazaraka wa alihata, and they will leave worshipping you, bowing before you, prostrating before you, and those gods whom you are worshipping. That is how the first Pharaoh was excited and incited against the believers of that time to take stern actions. And very interestingly, this is exactly what has happened in Pakistan recently. Delegation upon delegation of ulama approached the present head of Pakistan, who was then the military dictator, the supreme ruler of Pakistan, and took exactly this position before him. He said, if you leave Ahmadis alone, they would renounce your authority. They would turn against you as well and bring about a revolution in the country. And also they will lead people astray from their religion, and Ahmadiyya is going to spread very fast. These are the two real dangers. Religious dangers to us, the religious leaders, and political danger to you who has misappropriated the authority and become the ultimate in the political power in Pakistan. So these were the two reasons how he was convinced. And this is exactly the position taken by the government of Pakistan before other governments when they protested against this inhuman treatment of Ahmadis at their hands. And we have written proof pouring in from all sides, from many countries of the world, that in the written statements to the foreign offices of many countries where Ahmadis protested through their governments against this ill treatment of Ahmadis to the government of Pakistan, the reply was, as received by Ahmadis, and I have got hundreds of such letters with me, that the government of Pakistan tells us that they were compelled, they were left with no choice. It was stated by the ulama that a situation has arisen where if Ahmadis are not checked, their message will spread, they will create disorder in the land, and because we were afraid of disorder in the land, so we were left with no choice but to take these extreme measures. This has been admitted in so many words in those letters as well as in that so-called white or black paper which is issued by the government of Pakistan. So the history is repeating itself in every detail. Again, it is said about Moses and his followers, how they were treated. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مُوسَى بِآيَاتِنَا وَسُلْطَانٍ مُبِينٍ إِلَى فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَقَارُونَ فَقَالُوا سَاحِرٌ كَذَّابٌ فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُم بِالْحَقِّ مِنْ عِندِنَا قَالُوا اقْتُلُوا أَبْنَاءَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ وَاسْتَحْيُوا نِسَاءَهُمْ وَمَا كَيْدُ الْكَافِرِينَ إِلَّا فِي ضَلَالٍ. And the second verse which I have recited is applicable to the situation. It says, and when he came to learn the truth from us, they said, slay the sons of those who have believed with him, and let their women live. But the design of the disbelievers is but a thing wasted. This is the policy adopted by the opponents of Ahmadiyya today in Pakistan, that their women should be spared and their men should be killed. And a plot was hatched about 2 years ago, about which we reported to the government of Pakistan as well, and also we tried to frustrate that plan as best as we could, that the men of the able-bodied men among Ahmadis should be slaughtered, and their children and women should be spared. This is exactly the heinous plan which was hatched at the time of Pharaoh by his people. So in every respect, word for word, the same story is being repeated, not the same story of one single prophet, but the same story of all prophets put together. This is why the Holy Quran says there is a Rasulu Uqtitat, referring to the time of Hazrat Masih Maud, the latter days. The Holy Quran says that would be the time when all the prophets of God would be raised. How could they be raised? They are dead, they have gone, passed away, and gone back to their Lord. They will be raised in the repetition of the stories and tales which occurred at that time. That is the meaning of that raising of the old prophets. Their times would be revived. All that happened to them would happen to those people who would be godly people at the time. Now, answer to, again, we read, Pharaoh threatened them and said, لَأُقَطِّعَنَّ أَيْدِيَكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ مِنْ خِلَافٍ ثُمَّ لَأُصَلِّبَنَّكُمْ ثُمَّ لَأُصَلِّبَنَّكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. There was a difference there. I remember it was أُصَلِّبَنَّكُمْ مِنْ خِلَافٍ ثُمَّ لَأُصَلِّبَنَّكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا إِلَىٰ رَبِّنَا مُنْقَلِبُونَ وَمَا تَنْقِمُ مِنَّا إِلَّا أَنْ آمَنَّا بِآيَاتِ رَبِّنَا لَمَّا جَاءَتْنَا رَبَّنَا أَفْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا وَتَوَفَّنَا مُسْلِمِينَ. Again it says, قَالَ آمَنْتُمْ لَهُ قَبْلَ أَنْ آذَنَ لَكُمْ إِنَّهُ لَكَبِيرُكُمُ الَّذِي عَلَّمَكُمُ السِّحْرَ فَلَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ لأقطعن أيديكم وأرجلكم من خلاف ولأصلبنكم أجمعين قالوا لا ضير إنا إلى ربنا منقلبون إنا نطمع أن يغفر لنا ربنا خطايانا أن كنا أول المؤمنين. Pharaoh said, you have believed in him before I gave you leave. Surely this is a plot that you have plotted in the city, that you may turn out therefrom its inhabitants, but you shall soon know the consequences. Most surely will I cut off your hands and your feet on alternate sides, then will I surely crucify you altogether. They answered, to our Lord then shall we return, and thou dost not wreak vengeance on us, but because we have believed in the signs of our Lord, when they came to us, our Lord pour forth upon us steadfastness and caused us to die resigned unto thee. The same story in different words is repeated in the second verse which I recited. Now again the same story is reconstructed in modern terms, in the modern times. The word usallibannakum is not used because there is no longer crucifixion in operation. And cutting of hands and feet, not in that sense as it was used earlier. But in the modern terms, the same thing punishment is applied for the same reasons, with the same ultimate objective. When I further elaborate this, then you begin to understand what I mean. We call to mind an incident which was recently reported, an interview which was recently reported between Zia and some representatives of a television representative, I understand, from Sweden. There, it was claimed by General Zia that Ahmadis are leaving this country, and that is wrong. They are only leaving this country under false excuses, and it has to be stopped. Now when you stop somebody leaving the place of persecution, that is the cutting of hand and feet in fact. Cutting of hand in the sense that they are being deprived of their livelihood in that country and they can't earn respectably their livelihood as other citizens of the same country are doing. They are being gradually deprived of opportunities of earning their livelihood in an organized manner as a sort of plot hatched against them. Now this is very obvious and it can be proved beyond doubt that ulama throughout have been pressurizing the government to throw Ahmadis out of government services and to create economic situations for them where it becomes impossible for them to survive in such a country where they are being deprived of livelihood in a very cunning organized manner. This is exactly being done and carried out in the country. In the modern term, this is called cutting of hands. You know, this is why the thieves are punished by severing their hands, because that is to create a picture of they are not using their hands. Allah gave them hands to earn their livelihood. Because they cease to use their hands for that purpose of rightfully earning their livelihood, so hands are superfluous and meaningless, no longer required. So the punishment is a symbol of their crime. So cutting of hand also positively means depriving people of their source of livelihood. This was being done. And when Ahmadis sought shelter elsewhere, what Jawazat did was that he issued orders to stop them. And this was exactly carried out in detail at all immigration offices. Instructions were issued that those Ahmadis who go out seeking employment in foreign countries, they should be stopped from going out. With the result that sometimes it happens that even when they had left the country and had been waiting to catch the next plane to a different country, in a friendly country like Turkey, for instance, even from that different country, while the Ahmadis had already left their own land, they were brought back with the cooperation of that friendly country. It happened not once, it happened so many times. In one case, hundreds of Ahmadis who were going to Switzerland, some other country, perhaps I think Sweden, seeking shelter for the sake of earning their livelihood because they were deprived these opportunities in their own country. While they were waiting to change the plane or for some other reason at the Turkish airport, at the Istanbul airport, the Pakistan government, the authorities there approached the Turkish government and they were forced to return from there. And the moment they returned, they were put behind bars, they were imprisoned. And it was after some difficulty that their release was ultimately effected. So, cutting the feet means leaving them no room for migrating. Like cutting a hand means depriving them of their sources of livelihood. So in modern terminology, the present day government did exactly what the previous Pharaoh did to his people in the older terms. In the end, let me quote, وَقَالَ فِرْعَوْنُ ذَرُونِي أَقْتُلْ مُوسَى وَالَّذِي رَبَّهُ إِنِّي أَخَافُ أَنْ يُبَدِّلَ دِينَكُمْ أَوْ أَنْ يُظْهِرَ فِي الْأَرْضِ الْفَسَادَ. Before I left Pakistan, this was the conspiracy exactly which was being hatched. A demand was published repeatedly by the ulama almost daily that like General Zia put an end to Bhutto's life, I am not greater than Bhutto, that is Mr. Tahir Archive, so he should repeat the same performance and kill him. Imagine in an established government, in a civilized government, so-called civilized government I should have said, this demand is being daily published without fail. And a conspiracy was being hatched, that is the so-called Maulana Aslam Qureshi. And the government was just, preparing itself to gain enough excuse to show to the rest of the world that yes, he was a criminal, so this guy who did it, not because of any religious animosity. So the same thing, verbatim, to the letter, was repeated by the modern times. Alright, Assalamu alaikum. Hello,